I want to share something with you. Like the masses, I was in awe when I first laid eyes on all the things you are. I heard that speech. I knew we'd make noise. I just thought it'd be in the streets.
The Black Panthers are the single greatest threat to our national security. Our counterintelligence program must prevent the rise of a black messiah.
You're looking at 18 months for the stolen car, 5 years for impersonating a federal officer, or you can go home.
What do you want?
Get close to Hampton.
The Black Panthers are forming a rainbow coalition of oppressed brothers and sisters of every color.
Neutralize him by any means necessary.
America's on fire right now. And until that fire is extinguished, nothing else means a damn thing. Imagine what we could accomplish together. We can heal this whole city.
You ain't tell me it was gonna be like this. These ain't no terrorists.
We got a rat, man.
Does anybody else know about me?
No one knows your identity.
Are you sure?
We educate, we nurture, we feed, and we lobby. Perhaps we're here for more than just war with these bodies. We scream, and we shout, and we live by this anthem. But it's power to the people really worth their ransom.
When I dedicated my life to people, I dedicated my life.
You get to go out there and talk about dying a revolutionary death because you don't have another person growing inside your body.
Anywhere there's people, there's power.
Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual nominee tribute and conversation with Judas and the Black Messiah writers, the Lucas brothers, Keith and Kenny, and Will Berson. This is hosted by the Vidiots Foundation, the iconic LA Video Store, which is relaunching soon at the historic Eagle Theater in Northeast LA. Well, hi guys. First of all, thank you so much for joining me for this.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for having us.
So we're here thanks to Vidiots. It's got this huge history of supporting writers and also supporting underrepresented artists and showcasing stories that maybe are undertold. And as we were discussing before we started, the story of Fred Hampton is one that maybe people in Hollywood have been trying to tell for years and has not yet made it to the screen before Judas and the Black Messiah. And the origin story for all of you is a little bit different. But as far as I understand it, basically, Keith and Kenny, you guys had an idea for a Fred Hampton movie. And then separately, Will, you also had an idea for a Fred Hampton movie. And then at some point you merged. So would you guys mind just kind of briefly walking me through each of your origin stories on telling the story of Fred Hampton?
Yeah, sure. So we'd come across Fred Hampton in college, and I think it was 2004. We were taking an African-American studies course, and his story was just, it resonated with us. We thought it was just tragic, and it really just had a visceral impact on us, both from an emotional standpoint, but also like a political standpoint. It really changed us. So once we got into the industry, we really wanted to see his story told in film. And that was a process in and of itself because we're stand-up comedians. We didn't know much about the Hollywood process and the mechanisms that one takes to get a film made. But we'd done a lot of research, and then we eventually came across William O'Neill's story through the Interview Revised on a Prize. We had a transcript of it, and we read that transcript religiously, and it just had a lot of structurally, it just seemed like it worked as a film, just in how he laid out, his story, his infiltration, and then his eventual betrayal. And then we had the great fortune, it's really just serendipitous, of meeting Shaka while shooting a pilot for FX. And we just hit it off, and we knew instantly that he was just a genius. He is, and he really took to our idea, and then another serendipitous event was occurring at the same time. Will was working on his own script, so it was just it was just a lot of synergy going into it, and we were all very fortunate to sort of like connect, and like the timing couldn't have been more perfect for us to sort of come together. And we came together as a result of Jermaine Fowler. He knew Will, and he knew Shaka and us, and he made the connection there.
So, Will, when you were, I think you started in 2015 working on your own Fred Hampton screenplay. So, what was kind of the inciting incident for you?
I mean, I had known his story, all my life. I think my parents told me about him. But the inciting incident, I think, was the summer 2014 when Eric Garner and Mike Brown were murdered 3 weeks apart. And the fact that this shit is so recursive and never ending and non-changing, I felt like it was a story that really had to be told. And that was kind of the inciting incident for me. And I wrote a script on spec, and like Kenny said, it's such a horrific story, and Fred Hampton was so funny. I thought it might make sense to try to get a comedian to play the role. So I gave the script to Jermaine Fowler, whom I knew through UCB, where I used to teach and perform. And he liked it, but he was like, yeah, my reps want me focusing on comedy. He was like, I get it. And he gave it to Shaka I didn't even know he gave it to Shaka. And then Shaka called me up and shared the outline that he and the Lucas brothers had and said, we want to marry kind of our structure with your script. And I said, great. And it was a really happy marriage.
The process of screenwriting in Hollywood can go through so many phases, like you guys did here. Like there's, many writers and many drafts, and a lot of times people don't get credited for it. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about it. And I love the fact that I'm talking to all three of you at once when you've all been involved in it in all these various phases. What does it say about the process of making Judas and the Black Messiah that you're seeing it as a collaboration and not like, fighting the WGA for credits, like that you guys are all kind of sitting here and talking about it together?
Honestly,
Look,
I think, honestly, I hate speaking for other people, but I think it's Fred, right? I think Fred's message really, really impacted every filmmaker and every writer and every producer and every cast member and every crew member. And Fred was all about solidarity, and he was all about, working with a team to get things done. And I think once you study Fred's message, at least for me, I became committed to making sure that I saw my artistic endeavors through, similarly to how Fred saw his political endeavors through. So again, I can't speak for everyone, but I do believe that our commitment to making sure we honor Fred's legacy, that being a guiding principle, I think allow for a lot of people to just put the project first and not our individual careers or egos.
Will, I wanted to go back to what you said about thinking of a comedian for the role of Chairman Fred, and Keith and Kenny, you guys have this comedy background. I think that's such an interesting way to approach this. This person and this character has such a tragic ending, and there's so many elements of tragedy. It's called Judas and the Black Messiah. It's got this like really historic, tragic import. But I see what you mean about the idea of a comedian's energy. So why did that occur to you, Will? And then how did you guys run with that throughout the creation of the screenplay?
Well, maybe perhaps a bit naively, my original script had a lot of Hampton speeches, which I think are, they're amazing. And we joke about how he was the best writer involved in the script, Fred Hampton. But I had a lot of speeches, and I really wanted them to be set pieces, and I wanted to have the energy of Bring the Pain or Delirious. I thought they could really feel like that kind of intense, fraught, political, personal stand-up, like Chris Rock or Eddie Murphy. And that, I think, and he was super funny. And I think that was, I wanted those incredibly long speeches to feel like set pieces. And I thought one of the best ways to achieve that was with someone who could really hold the audience in that way. And obviously Daniel is a generational actor and phenomenal in the role and mind-blowing. And I'd also argue he's a comedian. Like he's got a sketch background. I don't know if he would self-identify that way. I don't want to, please don't quote me on that, but I feel like it's not a coincidence that Shaka and Lucas's and I all come from the TV comedy world, as does Daniel, I think.
Right.
And in terms of running with, sorry.
And Lakeith. I mean,
and Lakeith, of course.
And Lakeith, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say we're all speaking right after Daniel hosted SNL, so clearly you guys aren't the only ones who've noticed at this point. Well, yeah, and Keith and Kenny, how do you guys feel like your comedy background played into this? And I also wondered if Lil Howery showing up in that really pivotal scene felt like a continuation of that spirit.
I think comedy is so important to us, and I mean it's clearly very important to Shaka and Will. And I feel like for as collaborators, I just connected to the guys because they were so funny and it was easy to trust them. Like when I trust someone comedically, I just trust them. I just like if they have a sharp wit and they just have a funny personality, I'm like I know that they can do whatever. So I feel like comedy is always just like very important to me in all of my processes. And I think bombing a lot on stage and stand up also prepared me for the rejections that we got during the pitch process. Like I wasn't stung by it, and I was like, I'm not going to give up until we find the situation that could potentially propel us to get this movie made. So I think it gave me thick skin. Stand up just gave me very, very thick skin.
It's not a question of violence or non-violence. It's a question of resistance to fascism or non-existence within fascism. You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom. I said, hey, I'm revolutionary. Hey, I'm revolutionary. Hey,
you guys all had to live with Bill O'Neill as a figure in this movie. Again, this called Judas and the Black Messiah, and the way this movie treats him, he is our point of view character in some ways. He is the tragic hero. He's also the villain of the piece. Like, it's a really complicated role that he plays in the story. And I wonder what impact it has on you to live with someone in your head like that, and to be able to find the sympathy and be able to see him as a person while also reckoning with like the awful historical toll his actions took. Like, where did you land on him after spending so much time writing the story?
Well, I think there's I think there's a difference between humanizing someone and making them sympathetic. I think he is wildly unsympathetic. I think there's no sympathy there. But I think what we were trying to do the whole time is make sure he was human.
Yeah,
not to sound contrarian. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no.
I was gonna say he's just a brutal. I mean, it's tough, like psychologically. I mean, it's tough to know that there was a person like that out there who was in very, very odd ways. He comes from a similar background from Fred. They grew up in a similar area. They come from the same generation, but they were so diametrically opposed to one another. It was just tough, like juxtaposing those two characters together. It's just sad ultimately. You feel for the whole situation, and once you know all the facts, it's hard to just be like, this guy was a villainous monster. You're sad about the whole situation. You're sad that the government used a young Black guy to kill another young Black guy. It just becomes so tragic when you pull back and understand the scope of it all, that it's hard not to feel some, not, I don't want to say sympathy, but like just a better understanding of what his situation was like, I think.
When did Judas and the Black Messiah become the title for this? Does anyone take specific credit for it?
Shaka would know more. Yeah.
give the director
would
the
know.
credit.
It definitely wasn't the first draft of my script was called Assassination of Chairman Fred Hampton by the Closet Queen Mulatto, Edgar Hoover.
Which is a great title.
Which I still like. Shaka's original title was even better. It was called Jesus Was My Homeboy, and then in parentheses, and I killed that N-word.
Right.
Which I think is amazing.
Yeah, we just had Rise of the Black Messiah, but then we had it was just like a bunch of different title ideas, but it was like so in the early preliminary stages that it didn't matter. But we started off with Jesus Was My Home. That was that's the one we released to the press. I think we were all committed to that one. And then there was some issues with making Hampton seem like Jesus. I think there was some issues with that.
Can you guys talk about, I think you all spent time on the set, which again is something that doesn't always happen for writers in Hollywood. Can you maybe each talk about your experience of watching this movie being made?
Yeah, it was surreal. I actually, Will, we were there at the same time with Will, and it was unreal, man. Like we were fortunate to be able to see the church scene with Daniel, and it's funny that Will's talking about like it feeling like stand up, because when I was there, it felt like the best version of stand up comedy, like where the call and response is like the timing's perfect and you could feel the energy, like you, and then he was getting applause breaks afterwards. I'm like, this feels like the dopest stand-up show I would have ever been able to see. And it just, you get wrapped up into it. You feel like you're in the 60s, like everyone in their costumes, and I just felt like I was transported back in time. It was one of the best experiences of my life, for sure.
Yeah, me too. It was the best creative experience of my life. And my first day on set was a night shoot. It was like a 5 p.m. call or something. And I had a rental car and I drove to like, it wasn't even base camp. It was like Extras Holding, which is where the shuttle was taking people to set. And there were just dozens and dozens of dudes in their crowns, berets and shit. And it was so cool. And then that first night we shot in an abandoned, unheated church, and half the crew was wearing snowsuits, and it was just like kind of getting jumped into this almost guerrilla style filmmaking. But I was there the last 2 weeks, and it was a grueling shoot, and everybody was happy and energetic and glad to be there. And it was just like, easily just such a heartening and profound experience to see that everybody was there because they wanted to tell Fred's story. And even if they were wearing snowsuits in an unheated church at 2 a.m, they were like, yeah, let's do it. And it was just amazing.
Yeah, it was spiritual. It felt spiritual at times. I'd never been on a set where I saw so many people committed to making sure they told Fred's story in the best possible way. I mean, I'm talking about every member of the crew, every member of the cast, all the producers. It was just a level of commitment that was just beautiful to watch. I mean, it was, I never seen so many creative people just gel together to make sure they told the proper story. And it definitely changed me. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had.
I think we have time for one last question. And because we're here hosted by Vidiots, which is a classic video store, I think it's always interesting to talk to people who've gotten to where you guys are in the industry about the movies that got you here. And like what, presuming you were like me, of the video store generation, what were the movies you saw when you were younger or when you were maybe getting into college that made you, that got you where you are right now? What inspired you to get here?
Wow. I mean, my relationship with film is long. It goes back to like when I was a kid and my father used to take me to the movies in New York City, and we'd go see movies like Total Recall. And I sort of fell in love with the theater then, but I didn't become like a serious sort of like student of cinema until college. And I one of my best friends was like a cinephile, and he just sort of schooled me on like what's the proper films to watch in American cinema. So I got a tutorial. And some of the films that really just had a huge impact on me were Memento from Christopher Nolan, City of God, The Matrix, obviously. Then I started watching some of the older films, Citizen Kane, The Godfather, like Taxi Driver. I had no sort of awareness of how the scope of cinema, like I was really like sort of narrow-minded in what I enjoyed. So I think in college, meeting my friend and going through like basically a history level of cinema, that's when I really came to appreciate the value and the philosophical underpinnings of cinema.
Keith, you want to go next?
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar to Kenny. We kind of,
I can't imagine why.
had a very similar journey in terms of our appreciation of cinema, and college was certainly a pivotal moment. And we were studying philosophy, but we took this course, Philosophy 101, and they used film to try to like explicate philosophical ideas. And one film that we explored was The Conformists, which came out in the early 70s, Bertolucci. and it's like an Italian neo-realism. But that movie, I think, had a huge impact on just our appreciation of 70s cinema, which kind of played a huge role in how we thought about trying to shape the Fred Hampton story. So I would say The Conformist, but also, a lot of comedies. We really love I really love The Big Lebowski. I watch it. I try to watch it as much as possible. I think it's a perfect film. And if I had to go to an island and I can only take one film, it would be The Big Lebowski.
You want to talk about actors who can do comedy and drama equally well? Jeff Bridges and The Big Lebowski is
Yeah.
like a masterclass in that.
And the Coens, I mean, they can do drama and comedy. They're two of the best at blending genres.
Yeah. Will, you want to close us out with your picks?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the Coens, I feel like the most influential movies for me since I was like, a teenager thinking about even trying to make movies would probably be Blade Runner, Barton Fink, and Mike Leigh's Naked. And I'm a huge Coens fan, and I'm sort of not capable of what they do, but if I could emulate what any other filmmakers do, I would probably want to do that.
Just imagine you moving to LA after watching Blade Runner and Barton Fink and what you thought you were in for versus what the city was actually like.
And Repo Man, honestly, all that shit prepared me for LA. I was like, I seriously, like, first 6 months in LA, I was like, oh, Repo Man is a documentary. I get it. Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for talking to me. Congratulations on the incredible success of this really incredible movie, and good luck with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a great interview.
Yeah.